Hello, how you doing? I'm Sway. Uh, Today I need to talk about some things that uh, is just too important not to talk about. I don't know which one of my channels I'm going to be putting this video on. Whether it's going to be my ET Contact or my regular channel where I do my skits and stuff. But you see, with everything that's going on in this, in this world, especially over the past weekend and what have you, it's really hard not to talk about it. It's hard not. It's hard not to talk about it. It's hard not to think about it.
Okay, so this is going to be.
I don't know what else I can say.
I try my best to get my thoughts out there.
The situation that happened with George Floyd. The situation that happened with George Floyd. The situation that with everything that's happened over the past couple of weeks. You see, racism has always existed. I don't have any notes or anything. I'm just gonna talk, and once I'm done talking, I'll edit and add where I have to add things. But racism has always existed. From my experience, racism are for three reasons, main reasons. There's racism because of hatred, racism because of fear, and racism because of ignorance. Sorry, I have an itch. Racism because of fear, racism because of hatred, racism because of ignorance. Racism because of hatred, in where someone would kill another human being because they think they're superior. Where they will oppress them. They would harass them. They would do so much things because of hatred. Racism because of fear. They're afraid of something. They're afraid to even try to get to know who that other person is. They hear so many stories, but they refuse. They try to stay away. So if they see somebody, whether it's black or Hispanic or Asian or whatever, they'll call the police and I'm afraid for my life. Now here's the thing, racism, all three of those racisms that I mentioned, they can intertwine, they can intermingle. But anyway, racism because of fear. Racism because of fear happens a lot within the minorities as well. Especially you see a lot of black and Hispanics being targeted by police or by white police and or by white people, and like the Trayvon Martin stuff and what have you. It's like we're afraid. We're afraid that our children will be next. And just to let you know, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm a minority myself. And I've experienced my own racism. People racist against me. But the fact is that racism is wrong, regardless of what. Then you have racism because of ignorance, and I think most of us have seen it as it is. Now, racism because of ignorance can be because of ignorance because they don't know better, or they choose not to know better because of hatred. For example, I'm Puerto Rican, and to a person, a Caucasian person, a white person, if it's out of just pure ignorance because they don't know, they would think I'm Mexican. Because they, not that they hate people or anything, but they just don't know any better. They would like to know better, and they will try to know better, but they would think that I'm Mexican or that I'm Cuban, or usually when it comes to all Hispanics, we're all Mexican. Again, and that comes from an ignorance, but not out of hatred, but just more out of they want to know better. They are willing to be taught, but then that ignorance that meshes in with the hatred, like you have many hateful white people. If I'm speaking in Spanish to somebody, they say, go back to fucking Mexico. And I'll tell them, I'm not Mexican, I'm Puerto Rican. They say same difference, same shit. And that's out of a hatred. That's out of a hatred, and they're not even willing to learn or what have you. They're just so hateful that everybody's a Mexican. Let me tell you something. I don't give a shit what people call me. And I don't care if somebody calls me Mexican, Cuban, Puerto Rican, Dominican. Obviously, I'm not Dominican, but the fact is I don't care. Am I proud of my culture? Yes, I am. I'm proud of the Puerto Rican culture. I am, but I'm also proud to be Latino. General Latino, where I can mesh with all the Latinos. I can mesh with the Mexican. I can mesh with a Cuban. I can, why? Because we have that one thing in common. Where, and pardon the sounds, I can't turn off my phone, but the fact is that I'm proud to be a Latino. Yes, I'm proud of my Puerto Rican culture, that stems back from the African roots, the Taino and the Spaniards. I'm more ashamed about the Spaniards to a degree, but not as much, because on my dad's side, that's a long story. My great grandparents came from Spain to Puerto Rico, but on my mom's side is deep rooted within the African, the Taino, and the Spaniards and what have you. But that's neither here or there. What I'm saying is, I'm proud of my culture. I'm proud of the beauty that we have. But I also see the beauty in all the other cultures in the Latino, in the whole Latino or Latinx, as some people are saying now. I see the beauty in the culture in the Mexicans. I see the beauty in the culture in the Cubans and the Dominicans. I see it in the Salvadorians, the Ecuadorians. I see the beauty of the different and the differences within the different Latino cultures. So it doesn't bother me. Some people it does bother me. Personally, it doesn't bother me. I see beauty in all cultures. in Puerto Rican culture, especially, I've seen that racism of by ignorance, by just not knowing any better. And in the Puerto Rican culture, they tend to be a little bit just stubborn, and even if you tell them no, like for example, every Asian person, and in Puerto Rican culture, for the most part, I can't, in general, every Asian is Chinese. We see, they see an Asian, they're like, oh, ese chino, that Chinese person. They can tell who a Cuban is, they can tell who a Mexican is, they can tell who a Dominican is, but they can't tell what type of Asian. So they're all Chinese. If they're from the Middle East, like if they're from the area of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, right? Everybody's Indio. Everybody's an Indian. But racism just comes, again, for me, in my experiences, I see it as racism comes in those three forms. They can all intertwine, Racism of ignorance can be a racism because of fear or because of hatred. Racism because of a hatred can be because of, it all depends on circumstances, whatever. Either way, racism is wrong. It's wrong. Regardless, I try to get to know I'm gonna give you an example. In my own life, I was working in my buddy's store. Him and his family, they're from Pakistan, and they own a smoke shop. I started working for them. I don't work for them anymore right now, but I was working for them, and no, I hate shaving. I usually like having a beard or whatever, but it is what it is. But everybody knew that they were from that part of the world, but whether it's and it happens a lot where anybody from that part of the world, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, a lot of people, they'll call them Gandhis or whatever, saying they're from that, it's a derogatory term, whether they're saying it playfully or out of hatred. But everybody thought I was Pakistani. Everybody thought I was part of, I was like a blood relative of theirs. I didn't care. I was like, okay, cool. It wasn't until to a point where I finally let some of my customers know, yeah, I'm not blood related to them. I'm just really cool with them. They're like a second family. So, you know what I mean? They're wonderful people. I love them to death, and I will always talk highly about them. But it came to that point where I had to let them know, hey, I'm not Pakistani. I'm Puerto Rican. There came to a point in where there was a racist Puerto Rican couple that came in, and they started talking in Spanish. They started talking a bunch of shit in Spanish, like basically these fucking Indians. They're just talking so much shit where I felt offended, being Puerto Rican and having friends that are from Pakistan and what have you, right? I had to speak up, and in Spanish I said, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm not from Pakistan. I'm their jaws dropped, but it just goes to show that there's racism in all in all cultures and what have you. Racism is wrong regardless. Now, what's going on now is that now there's a lot more coverage of it. There's a lot more coverage. Racism has always happened. It's just it wasn't always on the news or what have you. Yeah, now because of social media, because of Facebook Live and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and what have you, everybody has a phone. Everybody has a phone, and they can record and what have you, and it will go viral and all of that. The thing that happened to that gentleman, it was terrible. That police brutality has been happening for years. For crying out loud, police brutality has always happened for a lot of years. It's just more over the recent past 10 years. You see more of it because, again, you have social media, you have cell phones that can record and what have you, and it's easier to expose. It's easier to expose. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna edit this. Give me 1 second. Alright, I apologize. It's edited into it, but racism has always happened, and now it's being exposed. It is being exposed. Racism happens every day. How many minorities have been killed on a daily basis due to racism that never gets covered on the news because it wasn't recorded on a phone? And I'm talking about in today's time. Right now, the United States is experiencing outrage because of what has been recorded. From the gentleman Arbery who got shot running by these two men, to Mr. Floyd, who that police officer had just strangled him with his knee. I mean, he had this demonic look on his face. I mean, but every day somebody gets shot and killed due to racism. We're not talking right now, I mean, there's so much violence as it is, but if we're going to talk about racism and the civil rights for everybody, during the civil rights movement, there was everybody knows about Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, all of that, but there's a lot of other people. They just happen to be big names on for but you think about it, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King, they were great speakers. Dr. Martin Luther King, with him, it was about the peaceful protest, letting his words speak and whatever. Malcolm X, in the beginning, it was by any means necessary. Then he made his trip to Mecca, and this is if I get my history correct, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But Malcolm X, in the beginning, he was talking about by any means necessary, and then when he came back, it was more peaceful. It was, through peace and love, because. And both men got killed. Both men got killed. Both men got killed for their message. Now, me myself, again, being Hispanic, being Puerto Rican, I've experienced my own racism. I wasn't hired at a job because, at a couple jobs because I'm Hispanic. And I live in a democratic state, for crying out loud. I live in a blue state. And I was not hired because I was Hispanic. How do I know? Because, okay, and I'll give you an example. In one of the job interviews, I was interviewing for a job at a thrift store that is ran by the Salvation Army. I wrote after the experience and what have you, I wrote them a letter. I'm sure it got lost in the mail, so to speak. They never responded, but I will say that during the interview, I let the woman know, an older white woman, I let her know that I am bilingual. I speak English and Spanish fluently. And if there's any situation where I have to translate for a customer, that I'm more than willing to do it. Her words to me was like, no, we do not speak Spanish in here. And I asked, okay, what if they can't speak themselves? There are many older Hispanics that they are unable to speak Spanish and they may not have a translator. She says, you will find that if you tell them not to speak, basically her whole thing was she had an issue with anybody speaking Spanish. She had this hatred in her voice. She had this look in her eyes of, there was a true hateful race. As far as I know, she was fired at some point. I don't know if it's because it had anything to do with my letter or if anybody else complained. I really don't know. I washed my hands of it. But I do know, because after speaking with a couple of the employees there, asking, they said it was because me being Hispanic. And that's when I wrote the letter. There's been other instances where I have experienced racism for being Hispanic. I was helping an elderly Spanish couple in a store, and I was talking to them in Spanish, and I was I was trying to help them out. Here comes this white person. Hey, go back to fucking Mexico. It's really sad. It's really sad that in 2020 you still have a bunch of hateful people that are being taught to hate. It is very sad that in 2020 people have not, we as a species, and here as a country in the United States, we have not learned from our mistakes. And if we do not learn from our mistakes, we are doomed to repeat them. I will always say, it doesn't matter who you are. If you are proud of your culture, be proud of it. If you're proud of who you are, be proud of who you are. I don't care if you're white, black, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese. It doesn't matter to me. A white person can be proud of their culture. If a white Texan is proud to be a Texan because everything's bigger and whatever. The hard work that they put. Hey, be proud. But when your pride leads to an arrogance, and that arrogance leads to hatred for your fellow human being, where you want them dead or what have you, or you don't want them mixing with your kids, it doesn't matter what culture you are, what race you are. If that pride leads you to hatred for a fellow human being, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. And I'm not even sorry saying that. You're just wrong. If that hatred leads you to become a person of power, of authority, such as a police officer, where for one person you'll use a taser, but another person, because their skin is darker than yours, you're gonna shoot them or or handcuff them and strangle them with your knee or whatever, you're wrong. Now, during the quarantine lockdown stuff that's been happening because of COVID, a lot of governors and mayors, they've been overreaching, and they've been trying to take away people's constitutional rights. And I've seen a lot of sheriffs and other officers stepping up to the plate saying, no, I am not going to execute those orders because they go against the Constitution. Now, when these police officers that are showing hatred and racism, and they're killing a young black person or an older black person or a Hispanic person or whatever, someone who's not white, a lot of the times I see police officers, they'll stand by their brother. And if you if you say that you are not a racist and you stand by your brother who is a racist, then that makes you a racist. I pay attention to everything, and I've been going on social media, and I've been noticing that there's been a lot of police officers that they don't get the media attention from the mainstream. I don't agree with the mainstream media. See, that's another thing. But the fact is that these officers, and I'm talking about white officers, Caucasian officers, they're standing up and they're saying that this racist piece of shit that killed an unarmed black man is just by strangling them, that he's a piece of shit. I believe it was the mayor or the governor of Minnesota. I'm trying to remember, in Minneapolis. I think it was the mayor that said that they need to file charges against that officer, and he's white. See, these people are showing that they believe in justice. They believe in equality for all people, because they're outraged that they're speaking out. They're saying, what the fuck is wrong with you? But going back to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Especially Martin Luther King, peaceful protests. Now, when all of this happened, there was a group of people, black and white, that they all stood outside the house of that officer who killed Mr. Floyd. I guess the ex-officer was trying to order from Grubhub or Uber Eats or whatever, right? The delivery drivers would go. They'll tell the delivery driver this is who that guy is. The delivery driver said, no, fuck that. He's not getting shit. That was a peaceful protest. And that was good. Then all of a sudden, you got rioters on the streets. Rioters on the streets. Breaking into businesses, stealing big ass TVs, 75-inch TVs, whatever, stealing groceries. Okay, I can understand groceries to a degree. To a degree, I'm just going to be honest. I can understand groceries to a degree. But now, I can understand some people's point of view saying that the violence and the rioting is in response into the violence that happened on them, on the black community. I'm sorry, but to me it makes no sense. What kind of message are you sending by looting and stealing a 65 to 75 inch TV from a Walmart or a Target or Best Buy or whatever that store was? What message are you sending to these racists? Now I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to show you a video right now of something that I can understand that on why they did it. And this was a riot. This was a riot that I can understand. I'm going to show you a couple of riots that I can understand. So I'm going to show you a couple. I'm going to do it right now. Alright, those riots I can understand. Those riots I can understand. You're pissed off. You're angry. You're pissed off. You're angry. You want to strike back. Let me tell you, I've dealt with police officers who were racist, they were assholes, they were cocky, and what have you. But I've also met a lot of wonderful police officers. You can't blame all police officers for the actions of one or two or whatever. Yes, protests. Protests. Call the NAACP. Protest with them. Work with them. Do it civilly. But why are you going to destroy your own neighborhood? Why are you destroying businesses? What's the point on stealing a big ass 65, 75 inch television? What's the point of that? That doesn't prove your point that you're pissed. It just shows that you're greedy. It doesn't show desperation. It just shows stupidity, and I'm not the only one that will say it. It makes no damn sense. You're destroying your own neighborhood. You're destroying your own town. It's... What's really fucked up to me is when you have peaceful... Because after the rioting happened, the peaceful protesters that were outside of that ex-officer's house, they went to protest again. Next thing you know, you got 75 police officers surrounding that man's house in like full riot gear. So the rioters, in turn, they fucked it up for the peaceful protesters. The rioters fucked it up for the peaceful protesters. That they were doing nothing but just standing there. My infamous Coca-Cola. But this is just how I'm viewing it. I'm just observing. I want you all to understand something. There are evil people in this world. And they want everybody divided. They want everybody divided. They want, let me tell you something. Everybody's blaming Trump for the uprise in the racism, and you can't blame Trump for that. See, I'm a firm believer that mainstream media is corrupt, and I know because I've seen it. I've researched it. I wanted to be in the mainstream media. I wanted to work behind the scenes and what have you, and they're corrupt. For the most part, most of them are corrupt. They will only show you. Now, due to social media, everything can go viral. And I'm glad to a certain point with social media, because why? Because we can expose these racist cops, these racist assholes, these men and women and what have you. We can expose them. Put them on Facebook Live and whatever. Video doesn't lie. Video doesn't lie. We can expose them. But the mainstream media, they pick and choose what they want to show depending on who's in the White House. You see, all this stuff this has been happening for years. It's been happening for years. It's just only a recent turn over the past 10, maybe 15 years, a little bit longer than that, where due to cell phone cameras and because of Facebook and what have you, where you can do a live video from your cell phone, that now it's being exposed. But before, it was the mainstream media that will only expose it when they feel like it. You can't blame any politician necessarily for an uprising, because it's not that it's an uprising. It's just now it's just finally being seen. It's always been there. It's always been there. It's just now it's being exposed. Now it's being exposed, period. That's just what it is. It's being exposed. I don't know how else to tell you. But truth be told, there is an evil force. There are evil people that are working behind the scenes. Whether it's in mainstream media or certain people in politics, whoever it is, I don't fucking know. But they want us divided. They want us divided during certain presidencies. And then they want us united and during certain presidencies. They will do anything. The key thing, you do not fight hate with hate. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are certain circumstances where we have to push back, where we have to fight back. But we have to choose how we fight back. We can either fight back with words or fight back physically. We don't always have to fight physically. Where we can fight back with words. By setting an example. Don't get me wrong, if something's happening and I'm getting attacked physically by somebody, I'm going to fight back physically. But if we can fight back with our words and setting an example of how real people show love to another human being, and showing disgust for another human being using our words and our example. I'm all about a peaceful protest. I'm all about a peaceful protest. Don't get me wrong, like I said, if somebody attacks me physically, I'm going to fight back physically, but I'm not saying I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that you're pissed off. It's fine to be pissed off. I'm pissed off. I'm sad. I'm pissed off. I'm every emotion you can think of. But now is not the time to be divided. We cannot be divided. We have to stand united as one country. As black, white, Hispanic, Indian, Pakistani, everybody, Christian, Buddhist, freaking Muslim, everybody, standing united with one voice, saying we're not going to put up with this racist bullshit. And it's not going to be through violence, and it's not going to be through rioting and looting that we're going to get that message across. And that's just my humble opinion. We have to open up the dialogue even further. We have to listen to each other. One of the things that really pisses me off is that when, I see a whether it's black or Hispanic, right? I see that they're Democrats. They're not really doing research or anything. They're just listening to the mainstream media and whatever propaganda the Democratic Party's putting out there. And then they see a Hispanic or a black person that's voting Republican, and then all of a sudden, the black and Hispanic, they're called a racist, they're called a coon, they're called a sellout, all because they want to vote Republican. That's wrong too. That's a racism within your own culture, within your own people, just because they think differently than you do. Whatever evil force is out there, they want that division. They don't want us united. They want us united in their cause of the New World Order, of the frickin' Mark of the Beast stuff, as it says in the Bible, because they want to be in charge. In the meantime, when it comes to true freedom of thinking, freedom of movement, freedom of being happy, they want us divided and against each other. Why? United we stand, divided we fall. They want us divided so that way all of a sudden they can come in and they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. So my humble opinion, I think all of us need to finally sit down at the table. White, black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, Catholic, whatever. Sit down at the table, truly talk, discuss things, and come up with a plan. To let these racist motherfuckers know that this shit is not acceptable. You have to remember the government works for us. We don't work for the government. So when a police captain or whatever They refuse to act. They refuse to act on one of their own who killed another person. They refuse to press charges. They refuse to do anything to bring justice. All of us need to come together and through the peaceful protest, through whatever it was that was decided, and say, look, you work for us, we don't work for you. Your job is to prosecute that piece of shit for what they did. No more of these administrative leave bullshits. No. And that's another thing. Administrative leave, so in other words, he gets a paid vacation. I mean, this guy is fired, but most of the time you hear about administrative leaves. No. Fire their stupid ass. Press charges. It's on the video. You got body cams now. You got the cameras, the cell phone footage and everything. That's your evidence. That's your evidence. And if you got to get an independent investigator that's not to the police, so that way there's no favoritism, do that. Whatever needs to be done to make sure that there's justice. Make sure that there's justice. Now, I know some people will agree with me, some people won't agree with me, some people, they may not agree with me for one reason or the other, and that is fine. If you don't agree with me, that is fine. We don't always have to agree. But we better sit the fuck down and talk about it. We better sit the fuck down and talk about it. Because we need to come together and we need to put a stop to this together. Alright, y'all. My name is Sway. That's it for today. Alright. I love you all. Peace.